There are certain moments in life when everything shifts and you find yourself searching for something. Connection, confidence, a sense of home again. For me, that moment came after my husband died. I found myself navigating a world that suddenly felt unfamiliar. Even the simplest things, like going home at the end of the day, felt heavy. The house was quiet in a way that was hard to bear. And somewhere along the way, I realised I had lost a part of myself, my confidence, my voice. A dear friend, Jackie Blease, suggested I try something I'd once loved, amateur dramatics. It felt like a small step, but also a brave one. Years earlier, I had dreamed of going to drama school before life took me in other directions. So I found myself walking into a local group, not quite knowing what to expect. What I found was kindness, warmth, laughter, and a community that gently gathered around me at a time when I needed it most. The Woodlands Drama Group became more than just a place to rehearse lines. For me, it became a place of healing, of rediscovery, of finding my feet again. And within that group, there are one or two people who particularly stood beside me, one of whom I have as my guest today, Pippa. Her support, her encouragement, her friendship is something I carry with deep gratitude to this day. Being part of this group didn't just bring theatre back into my life, it helped me to find my voice again. It helped me feel more like myself, more grounded and more alive. So today feels especially meaningful because I'm joined by Pippa Bogle, someone who not only shares a deep love for amateur dramatics as an actor, director, producer, but who also understands the quiet, powerful ways it can change lives. Such a joy to have you here today, Pippa.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here, Kay. What lovely words.
Well, I'd like to know what first drew you into Amdram. I mean, do you remember the moment it hooked you?
I do, and I'm so grateful for it. I was introduced when I started senior school, so obviously that was age 11, to a wonderful set of teachers, and every year the whole school would have a verse speaking competition. And we competed between classes. Somebody was chosen from each class in the whole of the school to represent and recite a poem or an episode from an act of a play or whatever. And I found myself being chosen a couple of times. I even still remember what I did. And the staff were very capable in just nurturing us, getting us our best performance. What they were really doing is teaching us the basics of how to speak, whether you're giving a speech, whether you're giving a vote of thanks, and finding confidence in yourself. And I loved that from the start. It was very anxious time when you were doing your final performance in front of 600 other pupils and the rest of the staff. But that was all part of it. And they were visionary. And a couple of us who are still in touch from school bless those times for what it's given us way into adulthood.
I noticed, in Australia from my grandchildren there, that public speaking is part of the curriculum within all the schools, whether it's private or state school.
I think that's an excellent thing. With the curriculum being challenged so much these days, I just wish there was something, because more now than ever before, young people need confidence in themselves. So I would champion that certainly in UK schools and across the world. Definitely.
So you've worn so many hats, actor and director and producer. What role feels most like home to you, and why?
These days, is different from, I don't know, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I would have said acting. I had a lot to learn. You can't ever say really that you've learnt everything, because depending on the part, the play, there's always stuff to learn. And professional actors, I've heard say that as well. Nowadays, I would probably say directing, because there's a joy in bringing something together from its different parts and witnessing that as the only person probably witnessing it. And that is so special, that I think I would definitely say directing now. Yes.
I think from what I see, and not that I've directed anything at all, a play evolves as the characters sort of get into their parts a bit more. And I know you're a very creative thinker, because I can remember in 42 Rainton Place when Blessing Clive was killing off so many women in the show. Yes, and there were some issues with getting all the bodies off the stage. Each time somebody was murdered, and I was murdered once in it. It was logistically proving very hard to manage, moving people in a seamless way, and that idea you came up with, where the person that was dead got off the bed, the sofa, the chair, wherever they were left, and stood and looked straight ahead into the audience and said their name, said what had happened to them, almost echoing back how they'd been left, because it is historically accurate.
It was historically accurate, yes, yes.
And I remember we learned, that was only a few sentences, but in the last few days, what a difference it made, because it became another level of theatre, didn't it, with that?
It was. I know we were really wrestling with that, my co-director and I just thought there has to be a way. And for some reason, I thought, what would the West End do with this? And I in my mind, I visualized the stage, and I thought, I think they'd say something to align themselves with the audience understanding of why they'd been killed, or what their life had led them to that moment. And then, as we did, have a sort of a bell to lead them off very slowly. And I thought, I don't know, maybe that would work. And it seemed to. And I was so relieved to have that suggestion, because otherwise it was indeed a nightmare trying to get people off. So that was good.
I think the other thing that has really surprised me about Woodlands is some of the really big tasks in productions that Woodlands has taken on. I mean, the first thing that I was in was Equus. And I was listening to Radio 4 Extra on Saturday, and Equus was on, with Ian Sharrock on as the young boy. And, you know, we had horses, we had, I mean, it was a dark play. And I think when I joined, I thought, oh, we'll be doing murder mystery, a bit of a farce, a bit of a comedy.
Yeah.
But there's been some big stuff we've been involved with.
Woodlands has always been incredibly courageous with what they've chosen, and that's brilliant. It's enabled us to find our value in Harrogate, and we've really taken that on. Yes, there are so many plays, some of them huge in terms of, you saw them on a film, which many of them have been done on film. And have a cast of 50 people, and yet we managed to condense it into a much smaller space. And very often we've been the first ones to do that production in Harrogate. So we're very proud of that. But I also think it's been fascinating for everybody involved.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking particularly of the van, in The Lady in the Van. How that van was got up 2 flights of stairs or 3 flights of stairs into the studio theatre. I mean, some of the logistics of what Woodlands has taken on. Amdram in general does. You know, I've seen some wonderful productions. Oh gosh, I mean, especially at the festival plays when people come from all over the Nussela and the Isle of Man, etc. And they bring all of this staging with them. And it's all been sourced locally. We paint and we decorate and we put together and we make horses' faces, masks, you know, the clothes. It's a fantastic effort.
It really has made us dig deep. And it's good for people's creativity. You see people suddenly extend themselves in terms of ideas, and people's natural talents where they've refined them more and more by digging into this creativity. And that's a wondrous thing. I think in one festival play, one of our very capable directors and producers built an entire internal lighthouse.
Oh, yes.
And transported it, which subsequently won an award. But yeah, it's having the vision, I think, and not being too safe about saying we couldn't really do this, but saying we will find a way.
And
we have.
Yeah, I love it. Has there ever been a production or a role that changed you in some way?
That's a difficult question, but I think years ago, I would have been in my early 30s. I belonged to Ealing Arts Drama Group. Again, very courageous group. And there was one play that we did, which was called The Dining Room, which was an American playwright, but it was essentially a history of family incidents within a house going through maybe 100 years or so. And so there were little scenes all over the place with strange connections between them. And most of us in the cast had about 2 or 3 different roles at least. We had to really make a difference between the characters. So it wasn't just a different accent, a different costume. We really had to inherit the movement, the speed, where the emotion was coming from. We all had to dig really deep for that one. And we managed it. And that really resonated with me for years afterwards. So much so that I did end up directing it for Woodlands. And that was, it must be 15, 16 years ago, which was a real pleasure. So yes, that was pivotal, that one. Very pivotal.
What do you think Amdram brings out in people that they might not even know is there?
I don't know, really. Can you ask me that in a different way?
Right. Have you seen people transform in any way through being?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I've seen very underconfident people who want to put their toe in the water, and they've almost been frightened to come through the door. And if you say, "Would you like to say this line?" they look absolutely terrified. But nevertheless, they manage it. And I think the confidence starts to come through. You see them relaxing. And then they smile a bit. And then they move a bit more easily. And before you know it, they've already gone 2 stages onwards. So they're auditioning purposely for roles that you could never have thought they would have put themselves forward for. And then what seems to be a very short time, you see them absolutely smashing lead roles without seemingly much effort.
Yeah. I have to say, a time or two when I've auditioned for one role and not got it and got another one, by the time I'm in the play, I really understand how much better the role I have is as part of the whole. And that's always fascinated me. I think as well, when you think of how busy people's lives are in general, everyone's got so much to do, plus all the sort of social distractions of social media and things like that. It also amazes me how many people do so much. So I know within our group, there are a number of actors who also belong to other groups as well. And it's almost as if they're either singing and dancing in a hops group, operatic group, or a musical group, and then they're back doing a dark play with us. And it's an awful lot to keep up with.
It is. It's a big commitment, there's no doubt. But strangely, it's also a release from the other stuff that's going on in your life, however challenging, emotional, or mundane that might be. A lot of people will say, oh, I couldn't possibly join a drama group or a society. I just haven't got time. But there is a side that says, however busy you are, it's a release to step into a different world where you are calmed, entertained, you laugh a lot, there's no doubt about that, has whatever the play is like. And there's a camaraderie that isn't there as strongly, maybe, as in other areas of your life. And it's a place to go to that treats you and nurtures you in another way, that when you do return to your everyday world, you are refreshed.
If these podcasts have touched you in any way and you'd like to support what I'm doing, you can do so through the Buy Me a Coffee link. Whether it's one coffee or a few, your kindness helps me to keep creating and offering these sessions freely. Every bit of support means so much, so thank you truly from my heart. Yeah, I think it's very enriching, and certainly when I first joined, I was working in an office, so I was used to being in part of a group, a team, a community, and then when I retired from that job, I got my sense of community, and I think we're all working towards one common goal, which is for each other to produce something that's entertaining.
I think that's very true. I think you learn to be very selfless. That's a good thing. You learn how to think of others. You learn how to give bits of yourself that maybe you find you're good at in supporting others, and realize that you should do more. So there are extra things that can come out in unusual things. I always say ordinary people find they can do extraordinary things without realizing that they had it in them to start with.
I couldn't agree with you more. For people who don't know what goes on in terms of putting on an amateur production, what do you think they might not realize?
There's so much behind the scenes. It's very easy to look at a finished production as a member of an audience and think, oh, yes, I'm sure they've been rehearsing really hard. The actors have really known their staff and everything's in place. There are months of organisation that go into just before the first rehearsal. There are scripts. Have we got the right script? Where do we get the scripts for? There's licensing. There's the rehearsal schedule about what goes where. There's an enormous discussion probably about props. Have we got them? Could we get them? Should we make them? Who's going to make them? There's the team. Production teams are extraordinarily important. If you haven't got the right production team or enough people in the production team, that production will fail, whatever the final sort of scene looks like. It is the lifeblood. So I would say at least 50% of what you see is going on. There's timing, there's all sorts of things that are hidden. But by golly,
Yeah.
they have to be there.
I mean, there are unsung heroes in so many ways when I think of the lighting and the music and the timing of any phone ringing or
sound and light are crucial.
yeah.
Absolutely crucial. I've been in looking at professional productions, and because I've done so much Amdram, you've thought, gosh, that's really spoilt that scene for some reason because the lighting wasn't as it should have been. And yet you just unconsciously absorb all this if you're not really looking out and knowing the details. So it's an extraordinary amount, yeah.
So taking that one stage further, I know that you have looked into becoming an adjudicator for Amdram plays. So how's that going? Where are you at with that?
I was really fired up because Woodlands happily have been so many years contributing and entering plays for the first round of a local festival, which ended up being the British Festival in certain rounds. It goes towards a pinnacle of that. I found it fascinating to go and look at the plays, hearing what the adjudicators had to say, realizing the depth of work that went into it, and before they even got to the afternoon or the evening themselves watching it, they read the scripts, and I thought that would be really good to do, because you have to give evidence and you have to make a judgment, but it's not so much about the end judgment, it's about picking out things that people can really think about because he watched it, giving them courage, giving them suggestions, or advice as to how it might be different because you've watched it with that hat on. And I applied to become an adjudicator for amateur festivals, and then COVID hit.
Ah, yes.
So I got my application through, which was quite a long process. And I was told that once COVID had hit, that they weren't going to be doing any more training, pre-prep training, to have any more people on board. I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that they have recovered, sadly, from those times. If I saw another opportunity for whoever needed adjudicators, I would seriously think about it because I would enjoy it, but I think it's a really key thing in helping societies learn from somebody external.
Yeah. No, I agree. What has been your most chaotic or memorable backstage moment?
Well, there's been so many, as you can imagine, and you can laugh about it afterwards, but at the time it might be totally shocking,
Yeah.
and your heart almost stops. But the one that I do remember was I'd not long been in Yorkshire, and it was one of the first musicals that I was in with a musical society, which sadly no longer exists, and we were doing The Wizard of Oz. And it was one of the early scenes where the Munchkins come onto the stage and see the feet sticking out from the witch under the house. For some odd reason, somebody was very, very nervous. And they were so full of adrenaline that for some reason they decided to go and drag the witch's feet out from the house, which of course were only the feet and the bit of the leg, wave them around to the audience and throw them in the audience. And it seemed like half an hour had passed, whereas in fact it was probably only about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And indeed, everybody went really quiet, even the audience. It was not something they were expecting.
Yeah.
And then I think the orchestra struck up and we went into a song, and it passed is all that I can say. Meanwhile, I could hear the director running down the backstage from high up in the gods where they'd been watching. And we were all literally struck dumb. It was just a moment that, and since I might say that young actor has become one of the lead actors in the region, and has become absolutely one of our most valuable souls. But he was so inexperienced that it was the fear, the adrenaline, everything got to him. And he just went into overdrive. That probably is the most memorable one.
How would you describe the difference between Amdram and professional theatre, not just in resources, but in spirit?
I think one of the most definable differences, strangely, you might think, is not in the level of acting, because sometimes there is very little difference, but it's in the rehearsal period. And I think about a bit of the discipline. So professional productions are rigid, very short time frames, totally pressured in a different way. They don't laugh as much. Amdram is full of laughter, allowing rehearsals to go chaotically wrong. And it's that which you remember after the production is on. And I think that is just wonderful. It's a shame that, in a way, professional productions have to be, because there's so much money involved, that there has to be a bit more seriousness about it. But Amdram is relaxed. And that's why it's so special, I think.
I think so too, but also I'm sure this applies to other drama groups as well, but it doesn't just end up with putting on plays, does it?
No.
There's all sorts of workshops, there's all sorts of fun evenings when we get together. There's other stuff that's out there. I mean, I haven't attended all the workshops by any manner of means, but, a fighting workshop, characterization workshop, these things are great fun because you learn from all sorts of different people how to do that.
They are. I also think they're essential because in some way we all need whatever role we choose to play or are used to or comfortable in. You need to challenge your boundaries, and you need to keep learning. You can never stop doing that. So if we have a workshop, it enables people to get involved and think about, well, actually, I'm quite good at this, or golly, that I never realized that before from a character point of view, or for how to put a fight scene together. Incredibly complex, or it can be quite simple, but you've still got to learn a few techniques. And I think it broadens our understanding of what we could do in the future, as well as upping our game for things that we could suddenly decide we're all rather good at that. We should use it more.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I do think as well, I got very interesting feedbacks. I've only been in one festival play, but obviously because we went through a few rounds, we were judged by two adjudicators in the rounds that we were in, and they had quite different approaches. But I learnt from both of them. They saw things, and I took those forward. I found those very, very valuable. That's the other thing about being an adjudicator, I suppose, is the whole thing of trying to balance honesty with encouragement, because people are not paid to do Amdram. And I do remember before the very first, whether it was the quarterfinals, honestly feeling physically sick, thinking, why on earth am I doing this? Because it's not just being judged by a warm and friendly audience. You've got somebody out there who's going to pull apart what you're doing. And I can understand people who say, well, I don't want to do plays where there's an adjudicator involved in it. But actually, I found it really, really helpful. And at the end of it all, instead of going, I don't know why I did that, I thought, oh, yeah, when's the next one?
Yes, it does enrich you. Adjudicators are very careful how they give feedback, rightly so. But they have insights you can't possibly tell from even a director's point of view, and they have so much wealth of experience behind them. in the work they do. They can suggest things. Otherwise, you do think, golly, yes, I never realised that. Next time, I'll think about that.
I think as well, it's not just about the characterization. They come up with things, information about the staging, or that worked really well, or that didn't work so well. I'd have done this. And that's all sort of fodder for the future in many ways.
Absolutely. You can never stop learning is the answer to that, whatever role you carry. However many years you've done it, you've got to keep yourself open. It's very important.
Do you reckon that Amdram has shaped your life beyond the stage?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely, definitely. The work that I've chosen to do, and I suppose looking back, I've had 3 different careers. I've been very blessed before I retired. And even now in my voluntary work that I do, I recognise there are a lot of fragments in there. That's not only been motivating and rich for me, but through that work, I've been able to sort of be of value to others. It's taught me a lot. It's enabled me to help other people. So the ripples go out.
Yeah.
And I think everybody that does it, you're not on your own in this, because you will make impact with perhaps others you may never know.
Yeah.
How you have just given them some insights, or just lit that spark that enables them to do something they would otherwise not have done, that has enriched them, has helped them, so forth. And I think that is so special. Yes, it has definitely gone into probably most of the other corners of my life.
And your relationships and everything, you think it feels...
Definitely. Huge friendship crowds that otherwise I would not have had the pleasure of being involved with wonderful different people who most have become lifelong friends. And you think, golly, to not have that would have been tragic. So for all of these reasons, I would say Amdram in some respect is so important in life for most of us if we get the chance.
Oh, I am with you, 100% with you. It's definitely changed how I see the world in many ways, and how I move in the world, I think. Do you think storytelling through theatre meets a deeper human need?
Definitely. Yes. This goes way back to our sort of first beginnings on earth, where we understand things that can be presented to us in that way. That we see things that make us step out of ourselves and inhabit worlds, characters, people, situations, help us make, hopefully be more rounded, appreciable, just better human beings. And if we didn't have that, I think the world would be different, ourselves would be different. It has to enable us to reach a bit further, most definitely.
I think as well, Amdram, because it's not so expensive to book a seat, it's more open to people who are financially strapped. If you go and see a show in London, and it not just the cost of the ticket, is it? Because you're going to travel, or depending on where you live, it's accessible. You can go and see something near to you that isn't costing you a lot of money, that maybe you feel enlightened by, you'll certainly feel entertained by.
Oh yes, we would. I remember a moment quite vividly about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was going to the theatre with my husband. We were up in the dress circle, we took our seats, and there was a mum with a young teenage girl, I would guess, who couldn't seem to find their seats. They'd gone to what they thought were the right ones in the dress circle. And then an usher came and said, "I'm really sorry, but these aren't your seats are in the stalls. And the mother said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise we've never been to a theatre before."
Oh, my word.
And I suddenly thought, how many other people are there, families, that haven't had that experience? And I do think it could be quite widespread, because your family may not have ever had the opportunity of not just being part of an Amdram group, but actually being in a theatre before, for whatever reason. And I am passionate to enable people of any background, age, place in life, to be able from a young age to go. A lot of our professional actors, if you read their biographies, they will say, "I was taken to see this by my parents," and it fired me up, and that is what I've become, what I am. We could lose a whole generation of brilliant theatre people if they don't even know what it is to start with.
Yeah. I was definitely taken as a young child to the theatre. The first time I was taken, I said to my parents, I don't want birthday presents in future because I'd like to go to the theatre instead. That was my first experience of it all. I went to see My Fair Lady with Julie Andrews.
Oh, wonderful.
That's how long ago.
How great that must have been.
Yeah, no, wonderful. So if someone is listening and thinking, I could never do that, what would you say to them?
I would say, never say never. I would say, take your courage in both your hands. That first step through the door is going to transform your life in so many positive ways you cannot imagine. And it's okay to feel nervous at the beginning. Of course you will. But you will feel very at home very quickly. And it is so worthwhile. It is worth doing.
I have to say, I had got myself quite worked up about making the call to join the Amdram group because I was feeling so vulnerable at the time. And I rang, actually it was Vicky at Woodlands Drama Group, who said, "Oh yes, come along." I said, "I'm not sure if I want to act, but I just would like to be involved with the drama group in some capacity." She said, "Oh, we're having a bit of a function on Saturday. Come to the house. We're going to have some tea and cake and might be a bit of wine around the place, but come and meet people." And I thought, well, I don't have to do anything but meet people, so that's all right. And I went in and I was introduced around, and I came out feeling as though I'd had a virtual hug.
Yes.
Everyone was so warm and welcoming. "You must join us. Come along. It'd be lovely to see you." And then the first reading, which we did for Equus, I was sitting next to Ian, and he said, "You should go for this part. You should really go for this part." And just that encouragement, somebody saying, "Go on, give it a go." And it was almost as though I was just dipping my toe in the water, but the water was warm.
Yes.
And therefore I could feel sort of magnetized.
That's a really good phrase to use, I think. The water will never be cold. It will never provoke fear. It will just make you stop and think, shall I? Should I? And as you think that, people around you will say, yes, go on, we're with you. Whatever you do, you won't be alone. People will be there doing it with you. And I think that's a great comfort in your early days. So it's a joyous life. It's a joyous existence. And virtually everybody I've ever met who's involved with Amdram would say, "Oh, I wouldn't be without it."
Yeah, I know.
Whatever the age, whatever the background, whoever you are, whatever you do, it's always been a really great idea. So yes, go for it.
So finally, what does theatre in all its forms mean to you personally?
I think it's a lifeblood for me. That sort of constant where you can draw on it for so many reasons. out of the group itself, and it's just a wonderful, special world of constant fascination and learning and camaraderie. It's been so special, and I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that by any means. It's literally been a lifeblood for me.
Wow. As we come to the end of this conversation, I'm reminded that theatre is never just about the performance. It's about people. It's about connection and the unexpected ways we grow when we step a little outside our own comfort zones. Oh, Pippa, thank you, and not only for sharing your insight and experience, but for the warmth, humour and generosity you bring to the world of Amdram. And on a personal note, for being such an important part of my own journey back to confidence and joy.
It's been an absolute pleasure and delight. And it's been joyous to do this, so thank you for the opportunity.
And to anyone listening, maybe this is your little nudge, whether it's joining a drama group, trying something creative, or simply saying yes to something new. You never know what it might unlock or who you might meet along the way. Woodlands Drama Group are putting on a play, The Franchise Affair, from the 11th to the 13th of June at Harrogate Studio Theatre. Harrogate Operatic Hops are putting on Calamity Jane at the same time. There are all sorts of opportunities to look out for musicals, for drama, for theatre near you. So do please take a look around. In Harrogate alone, we're not far from Ripon. There's Ripon Operatics. There's the Redwall Theatre Company. We have a Fraser Theatre, which is a local community theatre in Knaresborough. St Andrews Players, you name it. And this is not a wide area, so there is a need. May it be fulfilled. So here's to taking chances, finding your people, and maybe even discovering a whole new side of yourself. Until next time, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback really helps shape future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with family and friends who might benefit too. If you've any questions, or if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Until next time, take good care, and thank you again for being here.